My daughter texted me the Sunday before her son's birthday party and told me my help wasn't needed anymore. Her husband added a line underneath it, saying maybe it was time I let them figure out parenting on their own. I read it twice, set my phone face down on the counter, and opened my calendar app instead. I deleted every recurring commitment I'd built my entire week around for the last 4 years. 2 hours later, my phone hadn't stopped ringing. My name is Patricia Alvarez. I'm 61 years old. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and for a long time I believed that being a good mother meant making myself endlessly available, no matter the cost to my own life. This is the story of the text message that finally taught me otherwise. I spent 29 years as a school librarian in the Tucson Unified District, the kind of job where you learn every child's reading level and half their home situations without ever meaning to pry. I raised my daughter Melissa mostly alone after her father left when she was 7, and I never once let her feel the absence of a second parent if I could help it. I picked up extra shifts, shelving books during summer break, just so she could have new shoes every fall instead of hand-me-downs. I am not, and never was, a wealthy woman. But I always believed that if my daughter needed something and I had it in me to give, I gave it without keeping a ledger, without expecting anything folded neatly back to me. Melissa grew into a capable, driven woman. She met her husband, Craig, in her late 20s, and within 3 years they had a house in a nice subdivision on the east side and a baby boy named Theo. I liked Craig well enough in the beginning. I told myself the small things I noticed early on didn't matter. I was wrong about that, though it took me 4 years and one birthday party to fully understand how wrong. When Theo was born, Melissa went back to work after 12 weeks because her job in medical billing didn't offer more, and daycare in their area ran nearly $1,400 a month, more than their mortgage. She didn't ask me directly. Melissa was never good at asking directly, not even as a little girl. She just mentioned the number one night on the phone and let the silence sit there, and I offered before she had to say another word, because that's what a mother does when her daughter is drowning, and too proud to say so. I didn't just send money and step back. I restructured my entire retirement from teaching around it. I picked Theo up from my house 3 days a week, every week, for 4 straight years. I built my whole schedule, my doctor's appointments, my one friendship left standing from the library days, all of it around Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday mornings with a car seat installed permanently in the back of my Honda. I covered his preschool tuition, outright starting at age 3, paid directly to the school, so there'd be no awkwardness about a check passing through their account. I put him on my old cell phone family plan, so Melissa and Craig could add a line for his tablet without the extra cost. I told myself this was temporary, just until they got more settled. I never once considered what would happen if temporary became simply how things were. For a while, it worked exactly the way I hoped. Melissa got a promotion. Craig's construction supervisor job stabilized. By Theo's 3rd birthday, they were doing well enough that they didn't need the help anymore, not really. But nobody ever brought it up. So I kept showing up on Tuesdays with snacks and picture books. And I kept the preschool tuition running. And I told myself that was simply what grandmothers did. Quiet help nobody mentioned out loud. What I didn't expect was how Craig's attitude toward me would shift once the family settled into its rhythm. He stopped thanking me for the pickups the way he had that first anxious year. He started referring to my Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings as Grandma's babysitting shift. In front of his own mother, who visited twice a year and got introduced every single time as Theo's real grandma from Flagstaff. I sat through 2 Christmases where Craig's mother got the good guest room, and I got the pull-out couch in the office, 20 minutes from my own house. When I mentioned once that it felt strange, Melissa laughed it off and said I was reading too much into sleeping arrangements. Little things piled up the way little things do. Craig once told a group of his coworkers at a backyard barbecue that Theo's daycare was basically free. "Because my mother-in-law handles it," said with a small laugh that made it sound less like gratitude and more like a punchline. Melissa would catch my eye sometimes when he said things like that, and I could see her deciding, every single time, that keeping the peace at home mattered more than saying anything on my behalf. Theo's 4th birthday party was scheduled for a Saturday in October. I had already bought him a telescope, the kind for young kids with training wheels built into the design, because he'd been asking about the moon for weeks during our Tuesday mornings together. I had cleared my whole week around the party the way I cleared every week, without thinking twice about it. The message came in on Sunday night, 6 days before the party. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while I was rinsing out Theo's sippy cup from our visit that morning, and I saw Melissa's name and smiled before I even opened it, expecting a reminder about the party time or the guest list. Instead it read, "Mom, Craig and I talked and we think it's time you stepped back from picking up Theo. We want to figure out our own routine as a family." I stood there holding a wet sippy cup, reading it 3 times, waiting for more context that never came. A minute later, a second message appeared, from Craig's number this time. "No hard feelings, Pat. Kid needs to get used to just his parents. You've done enough. You've done enough." I set the cup down in the drying rack and stood very still in my kitchen. The kind of stillness that arrives right before a person finally understands something they've been avoiding for a long time. I did not call Melissa. I did not type a single angry word. I typed back, "Understood." And I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop, the way I used to grade reading logs after Melissa went to bed as a little girl, because I wanted to see everything clearly, one line at a time. I pulled up 4 years of bank statements and wrote the numbers down on a legal pad in my own handwriting, because seeing it typed on a screen never makes anything feel real the way ink does. Theo's preschool tuition, paid directly to the school, came to $780 a month. The extra phone line I'd added for his tablet ran $45 a month, small but steady. The 3 mornings a week of child care I'd never once billed for, if I priced it the way any licensed sitter in Tucson would have, came to roughly $600 a month I had simply absorbed as love instead of labor. 4 years, just under $67,000 in tuition and phone costs alone, not counting a single hour of my own time. I opened the preschool's parent portal, found the autopay I had set up myself 3 years earlier and canceled it. Watching the little confirmation message appear like it was nothing more than canceling a magazine subscription. I called the cell carrier next and removed Theo's tablet line from my account entirely. Then I opened my own calendar and deleted the recurring Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday blocks I had kept for 4 straight years. The ones I had built every doctor's appointment and every lunch with my one remaining friend around. I didn't feel triumphant closing that laptop. I want to be honest about that. It felt more like setting down a bag I'd been carrying so long, my shoulders had forgotten what it felt like to hang loose at my sides. I still went to bed that night with Theo's telescope wrapped on my closet shelf, because none of this was about punishing a 4-year-old who never asked for any of it. I just didn't know yet what I'd do with it. I turned my phone to silent around 10 that night for the first uninterrupted sleep I'd had in longer than I could remember. When I woke Monday morning and turned it over, the screen was full. The preschool director had called, confused about a bounced payment for the week. Melissa had called 9 times. Craig had called twice. There were texts stacked one on top of another, starting confused, turning frantic. "Mom, the school says tuition wasn't paid. Is something wrong with your card?" Then, an hour later, "Mom, Theo's tablet says no service. What's going on?" And finally, from Melissa, just past 9, "Please call me. I don't understand what's happening. I made coffee first. Then I called her back. 'Mom, what did you do?' She said, her voice cracking somewhere between the grown woman she was and the little girl who used to call me from her dorm room when things got hard. I did exactly what you and Craig asked me to do, I said, keeping my voice level. You wanted to figure things out as a family. I stepped back. There was a long silence on the line, the kind where I could hear her doing math she should have done a long time ago. This is about the party, she finally said, or the sleeping thing at Christmas. Mom, if this is about that, it's about 4 years of quiet arrangements nobody ever thanked me for, I said, and then being told I've done enough, like I was a service you'd outgrown instead of your mother. She didn't have an answer for that. I told her I loved Theo and I loved her, and none of what I'd canceled was going to change that. But I also wasn't going to keep quietly funding a family that had just told me in writing that my presence in their routine was optional. Melissa showed up at my door that afternoon, alone, without Craig, her eyes red. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd written that legal pad the night before, and I let her read it, every number laid out in my own handwriting. She cried at that table, not performing tears, the real kind that come when someone finally sees the shape of what they'd been standing on. I didn't turn everything back on that week. I want to be honest about that too, because forgiveness and financial rescue are not the same thing, and I wasn't ready to confuse them again. I told Melissa I'd help her look for affordable daycare options, as a mother helping a daughter, not as an invisible line item in someone else's budget. I kept Theo's Tuesday visits, but only Tuesdays now, and only because Melissa asked for them herself in person, without Craig's name attached to the request. Craig never called to apologize. Melissa told me 3 weeks later that they'd had a hard conversation about it, and that something in how he talked about family had started to shift slowly, the way ice shifts before it actually breaks. I still live in the same small house near the school where I taught for almost 3 decades, and some evenings I still catch myself reaching for my keys on a Wednesday afternoon, out of old habit before I remember I don't have to. I gave Theo his telescope for his birthday 2 weeks late, after the party I wasn't invited to had already come and gone, and we set it up together in my backyard on a Tuesday evening and looked at the moon, just the two of us, the way it should have been all along, not a service, not an arrangement. These days, nobody tells me I've done enough. I decide that for myself now, one Tuesday at a time.